One of my favorite people, and I mean this, and same with my wife, is Kayleigh McEnany, because in addition to being brilliant and kind and decent, she knows how to give as good as she gets on these different shows and so forth, and she's a person of deep faith. Obviously, I'm Jewish, she's Christian, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing, as a matter of fact, if you believe in the same God. And if it gives you solace, and it gives you morality, and it gives you some kind of, comfort, I would say. Kayleigh McEnany, you've written a fantastic book, as usual, Serenity in the Storm. How are you, by the way?
Hey, I'm doing great, Mark. It's so good to talk with you. And I've got to say, you are one of my favorite people, as you know. Me and my husband, Sean, we love you, listen to you forever. And it's great to join you. Always an honor.
And he's a great guy, too. And you have 2 kids now, right?
2. One who kept me up all last night, the 5-month-old. So it happens.
That's right. My left foot kept me up all night. I have a neuropathy, but that's a whole other story. Anyway, tell us about this book generally, and then we'll get into the specifics.
Look, Mark, I felt very deeply about this because for my whole life, I've loved politics ever since a young age. I was this 8-year-old cheering for Bob Dole on the playground. I mean, I've just been animated by the political process. And, while I don't have, many, many decades, I certainly have observed something that has changed, from my time in college and law school where I watched the Obama battles play out through the Bush years. I've noticed something transformative happening, and it is so much bigger than a political party. And look, I'm a committed conservative. That's what I am, but it's bigger than left or right. I just feel that we as a people of faith, Jewish, Christian, believers in God, we look to something bigger than ourselves. It's been left behind. Total forsaking of God, complete abolition of patriotism on the part of the left, family unit being destroyed, and this fabric that really makes our country up, faith, freedom, and God, and patriotism, it's just gone. It's fallen by the wayside, and I feel very deeply that we've got to return to that, or we're going to lose our country. It's bigger than 2024. 2024 is important, but something deeper is happening.
And something deeper is happening, and why do you think that's happening? What's causing that?
Well, when you look back, I mean, there was a recognition going back to, let's say, the 50s and 60s, before they took prayer out of schools, before a professor or a teacher, a high school teacher, wasn't allowed to read a Bible in silent prayer at his desk, before a football coach wasn't allowed to kneel at the 50-yard line in silent prayer. As this was going on, what we saw was a Supreme Court that warned, even as we take these things away, we are warning against a religion of secularism. We are warning against taking out of our founding documents something that has been there. And it was an admission that there's a supreme being, an admission that there's something guiding this country, that the American dream is alive and real, and it's guided by a supreme being. There was this recognition there, even as these kind of boundaries were hashed out as to what no official state religion would look like. But all of a sudden, those boundaries went by the wayside, and you have a radical left that has said, we don't care about faith. We're going to turn it on its head. If a transgender slaughters 6 Christians, we're going to turn it around and make the victim the perpetrator, and so forth. It's insidious. It's malicious. And, you wonder why all of a sudden in the last really 5 years, I would say, you have this resurgence of something that is so powerful, so strong, so evil, and has really infected a side of the political aisle.
And by the way, I know you to be a very thoughtful person, a very kind person, a person with great integrity, no matter what anybody's saying in the last 48 hours. I just want to make that abundantly clear from my perspective. And this book demonstrates that as well. So what do you think can be done about this?
We as parents, we as believers need to stand up. And I think it means sharing the truth. I hate when people say, share your truth. No, there's a truth. And some of these truths are, America is the greatest country on planet Earth. God does exist. There are 2 genders, male and female. These are truths. Some of this has been science for a long time, and then it's turned on its head because the science isn't woke enough. So we as people of really common sense, I should say more than anything, need to speak the truth and do so boldly. But, as 1 Peter 3:15 says, when we do speak boldly, it needs to be accompanied with gentleness and respect. So when I share, my beliefs, I share why I'm a conservative, the principles that make sense to me. When I share my faith, I share my story of how God's guided me through life, through loneliness, through tough times as a young person, through the social media generation. I share my story and how it's affected me in a positive way, without name calling, without disrespect, with kindness and with gentleness, and realizing, at the end of the day, we may be on two different sides of the political aisle, but I believe in human decency, and I believe common sense will win out. So I think that's how we do it. And it's speaking boldly and not shying away despite the repercussions that may happen in the corporate world, in the political world, and so forth.
And in your book, you take on some big subjects. You take on Afghanistan, you take on Ukraine, you take on abortion. You have an excellent chapter on liberty. You talk about education. I'm just looking at my notes. And then society, the unrecognizable world. And this is what you're talking about. And I feel like I talk about it, but you talk about it. You reflect on faith and what's happening in the world and so forth. How do we get people back into churches and synagogues and back into their faith? Because their faith seems to be government, and government's just not serving them well.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's a great question. I think it's meeting people where they are. And, I recognize...
Wait a minute. That is a great point. I don't want to rush past that. Meeting people where they are. And I'll tell you why I think that's a great point. Then you can tell me why you know it's a great point. I have a Chabad rabbi. Now, what does that mean? Most of the world that's not Jewish has no idea. These are rabbis who go to where the people are, who go to their homes, who go to their places of work. They're not bound by some facility where you have to show up. This is what they do. This is what the old rabbis used to do. I suppose that's what Jesus used to do too. They go to where the people are to talk to the people. And this is the biggest growing part of the Jewish community right now. Is that the sort of thing you're talking about?
I want to say amen, Mark, because that's exactly what I'm talking about.
We're talking to Kayleigh McEnany about her fantastic new book, Serenity in the Storm. Beautiful book, Living Through Chaos by Leaning on Christ. You can get it on Amazon.com, any major bookstore. All my social platforms have it there now if you want to check it out. And it's also a discussion about faith and the application to events that are taking place in the world today. For instance, education. You're very, very concerned about what's happening with young people today. Go ahead and discuss that a little bit.
And it's the parents' rights being taken out of it all. I was so dismayed. You hear about this kind of thing in California, but you don't often hear about it in Florida, though it's happened. If parents sent their daughter to school, young girl, comes home, different gender, different name, totally unbeknownst to the parents, and they find out about it, Mark, when she has 2 suicide attempts in the school bathroom.
Terrible.
And this kind of story, it's a one-off, right? You think, but it's not, because something similar happened in California, happening across the country. And when you're totally and completely removed from your children's life, really, Joe Biden has said on multiple occasions, it's kind of like the child is the teachers when they're in the child's classroom. And to him, I would say, I was pregnant for 10 months. I can tell you with certainty that, all of the steps I went through to give birth to this wonderful little boy who's 5 months old, it is my child. It's Sean's child. It's God's child. It's not a teacher's child, though I very much respect their profession. And this is the kind of insidious indoctrination that's happening in schools on gender, on race, and we've got to be accountable on this. And just one last point, Governor DeSantis' office, I asked them, hey, what kind of books are you finding? You guys are really on this books and libraries kick with Disney and the fights we've seen there. The stuff they sent me, I've tried to put it on Fox, and we've been able to put up some of it in a blurred format. We're in the noon PM hour on Outnumbered, but the images are so bad that have been found in elementary schools, we cannot put them up, Mark. And these are in young kids, 3rd, 4th grade kids' classrooms. depictions of people having intercourse in vivid detail that is in the minds of our children. And the left just says banning books, and we're supposed to surrender to the woke mob and say, okay, you're right, we're not the party of banning books. And it's not banning, as you know, but this kind of stuff is going on all across the country, even in red states like Florida.
Your point is very, very important, because Biden gets out there, he's constantly using that phrase, they're banning books, they're banning books. No, they're banning pornography. They're banning perversion. Right. They're banning things that, if any parent had books like this at home showing their 6- and 7-year-old, they'd lose their child. You would hope, you would think. And so Biden is obviously defending these books in classrooms and in the libraries. Do you think the Republicans do a good enough job explaining this?
No, and this is on several issues, Mark. They just say, you're banning books. No, we're not the party of banning books. We're the party of not having pornography in the faces of kindergartners. They say you're the party against banning assault weapons. No, we're the party for school security that would actually protect children, which Biden has said he's against. You're the party who wants to take away women's rights. No, we're the party that doesn't want to be in the camp of North Korea and China when it comes to our abortion laws. But they attach labels to us, and we never take the offense. And that's one of the things I always try to do at the podium is, they throw something at me, and you've got to spin it, and you've got to be on offense and point out how extreme, how radical they are, because they are so good at singing from the same song sheet. We are the party of banning books, and it works to great effect. It worked in the midterms, and we've got to be pitch perfect come the next 18 months because America's future depends on it.
I just feel the Republicans do not know how to unite, speak in complete sentences, get their points across. Instead, we get people like Nancy Mace running all over the place. These self-hating conservatives and Republicans, pseudo-conservatives, who say, don't discuss this, don't discuss this. Why shouldn't we discuss that Democrats want abortion on demand right up to the last minute? Partial birth abortion. Why don't we explain what that is? We need to do these sorts of things. You were a policy and spokesperson for the RNC. You've had quite a career in a very, very short period of time, so you know how to do these sorts of things. I just feel like we're very bad at it. You even cover Afghanistan in your book and relate it back to faith. How do you do that?
Afghanistan, it's pretty amazing, Mark. Sometimes it's easy to see the glass half empty, and how can you not when we lost 13 service members, heroes in Afghanistan, when, Biden said, we won't lose this country. It's not a Friday to Monday sort of thing, like Blinken said. They were all false. They were all lying on that because that's exactly what happened, and they were warned about it. It's easy to get dismayed. We lost 2,448 service members in Afghanistan, and then here we are, the country gone. But the underside of that is I got to interview a woman who radiated with joy, with happiness, and she said she was lucky and she was blessed to live in Afghanistan, and Taliban run Afghanistan. And she said she's lucky because the people of Afghanistan, she's a member of the underground church, so the people of Afghanistan saw the American soldiers at the Abbey gates, and they saw light, and they saw goodness, and they saw faith. And now they see darkness, and they see dimness. And she said the number of people who are now believing in God, who are turning their lives around. She said she's seen murderous brothers who have murdered many, many people in their lives, who have now surrendered their lives and are now living totally and entirely differently. And that's happened because of the light that the American troops and soldiers brought over, 2 decades. So, their sacrifice was not in vain. Many lives are being changed because they recognize the beauty of freedom. And it took the American men and women who sacrificed and gave every single ounce of what they had to give hope and to light to so many over there in Afghanistan.
The book is Serenity in the Storm by Kayleigh McEnany, Living Through Chaos by Leaning on Christ. Leaning on Christ. You go to church frequently, I assume, but you can lean on Christ at home, right? You can lean on him anywhere. Just you lean on God anywhere.
Yep. I do it every day. That's how I make it through my day. Some days are tough days, but every day has been a blessed day for me. My troubles are so small in comparison to others, but, I write a lot about loneliness and dark periods in life and how he always shows up. He really does. And, that's the key to this next generation, to Gen Z, taking the focus off the selfie and the self and the creator of the self. Because when you have that ultimate hope it really makes the mild problems of this life just look like blips on the radar of a much bigger picture.
You also talk here about the heart conversion. You want to talk about that?
I do. I'm very candid about how my life changed. I received 3 calls, pretty important calls. One was from a president asking me to be his press secretary. One was from a doctor telling me I had an 84% chance of breast cancer. Not as great of a call as the call from the president. But then I had one call where I left work early. This is just after college. I'm living in New York City alone. No one was answering their phone. I just wanted to talk to someone. I was just, in a low place like I think some young women feel today. And I said, God, if you're out there, I got to hear from you, and I need to hear from you right now. And Mark, I kid you not, in that moment, my phone lit up, a number I didn't know. And I said, if this is a telemarketer, I don't care. I want to talk to someone. And it wasn't. It, in fact, was my church saying, this is the Journey Church. We feel like we need to pray for you. How can we pray for you? And in that moment, I'd heard about God my whole life, but my heart converted and changed, and my life changed. And I have a rock that never fails me.
And one of your rocks, I think, is your husband, correct? Tell us about him.
Yes, you've met him. He is so wonderful. He played Major League Baseball for 11 years. He is just a solid man and husband. We met on Twitter, which is kind of funny. Like, that speaks to the millennial generation. But you know what? He has been the best husband. But the most incredible thing is when you have a spouse and you watch how they become amazing fathers and mothers. And, to see Sean with my kids, he is just the rock of our family, instilling in our kids tradition and faith. And we're giving them the kind of upbringing I had where, I asked Blake at night, I go, where's God live? And she goes, in my heart, in my heart. And that's because she has an amazing role model in Sean. And I try to do the same, but we just have an awesome family, and it's very blessed, live a very blessed life.
I remember when the two of you would come to book signings, the one in, was it Palm Beach Gardens or somewhere around there?
Yeah. Sean was in spring training. Yes, we stood in line to see you.
I probably would have said, what are you standing in line for? No? I hope I said that.
No, I think you did say that. And Sean,
you're being sweet. I must not have. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, he listened to the great one, forevermore. We're both babies of talk radio. I mean, I listen to Rush. I listen to you. My husband listened to you. And when we met, he's like, do you listen to the great one? And whenever we'd get in his truck, I grew up in my dad's truck. I listened to Rush a lot. He informed a lot of my young years. And Sean, I started writing in the truck, not with my dad, but my husband, and the great one just played a lot across our radio waves. And boy, are you brilliant, and what an honor it is to have you as really a leader in the conservative movement.
Well, you're terrific. You really are, Kayleigh McEnany. Folks, this book deserves to be read. I think it'd be a fantastic Mother's Day gift. It's a beautiful book, Serenity in the Storm. So many good things about the book and in the book and about the author. You can get it at Amazon.com. We've linked to it on all my social sites, Twitter and all the rest of them. I encourage you to go on there, get a copy today, and I know you won't be disappointed. Even more than that, I know your mother won't be disappointed. And Kayleigh, again, job well done. All the jobs you do are well done. Congratulations. It's fantastic.
Thank you. High praise coming from you, Mark.
All right, take care of yourself. Very good.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
And by the way, we got to work on getting you on my Sunday show one of these weeks soon. We can discuss the book and other things. So we'll look into that soon, okay?
Oh, I'd love that, Mark. Thanks so much.
All right, take care. God bless.